G'day guys, I hope you're all doing really well. Last week, Paradox Interactive kind of surprised us with a bunch of announcements regarding the next expansion packs and additions and free updates to City Skylines over the next couple of months. And to be honest, all of these updates are going to be absolutely perfect for my city of Shirley. Like most vanilla cities in City Skylines, the city looks pretty decent from up above. But when you get nice and close, there's a lot to be desired. First of all, the city has no distinct skyline, which is something that I really like to have within my cities. So as you can imagine, I was super excited when I saw the new creator content pack Skyscrapers was announced. I mean, that's as good as it gets. However, there is one much larger problem that I've been struggling with Shirley since I built it a couple of months ago. And that's its identity. I mean, where on earth is this place? It's kind of just set in generic City Skylines 2015 era. This is not it, Chief. And the thing is, I was always kind of imagining that this place was kind of set in Asia anyway. Geographically, and even the types of city planning was all kind of inspired by Asian cities. So that kind of leads us to the new creator content pack by Elvis, Heart of Korea. Let's convert the city of Shirley into a Korean city. Wait, what? Yeah, we're gonna convert this whole city into a Korean city using the new creator content pack. What could go wrong? I feel like lots of things could go wrong. So what am I so worried about? Well, honestly, quite a few things. I'm worried that it's going to be an absolutely massive task, and I'm gonna get started, and then I'm gonna realize that converting an entire island, a giant fiery island, always on fire, that it's just not going to be possible. That I'm going to get started and then realize, no, it's just not going to be possible. So that's a little bit of a concern, but I do have an idea of how I'm gonna just fast track the whole process. And then what happens if I just regret it? You know, what happens if I get started and totally regret it? But we're gonna do it anyway, you know? We're gonna commit, we're gonna get into it. And then there's also the worry that, I mean, we're not exactly making bank. So essentially converting blocks of buildings into different types of buildings means we're gonna erase all of these levels. You know, won't get rid of all of them, but a bunch of these are gonna change, which means we're gonna lose out on some money. Good, we're making money, so that's good. But yeah, there's a couple of concerns, but we're just gonna do it anyway. So you know what we're gonna do first? Let's see what sort of buildings we've got to play with. So I'm gonna go down to this section here, and I'm going to remove all of these guys. And this will be my little testing block, 3 blocks. And I'm using a couple of mods in Shirley, and I'm gonna use the Find It mod to search for all the new assets that we can play with. So I can change some of the filters so that we are searching for, there we go, required DLC and CCPs, and then scroll down to the new ones. We've got the Skyscrapers pack that we're going to be playing with in the next episode, but for now, let's check out Heart of Korea. And this is my first time checking these out. Elvis is actually the creator of these assets, and they've actually been on the Steam Workshop for many years. In fact, they were one of the very first assets that I downloaded for my Springwood series. Shout out if you have been watching since Springwood. But I've been using those assets for ages, so it's so cool to see that they've actually got a creator content pack. I think it's super, super cool. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at some growables. Fantastic, because these are the things that are going to be, well, these are the buildings that are going to be occupying a big chunk of Shirley now. I'm also using Plop the Growables, which means that I can place these down, and every time I place them down, they become historical. And that means they won't disappear. They will, of course, still require some basic services. So, you know, luckily that Shirley is still pretty good in terms of that. But these are all low density buildings. There we go, we've got some high density ones too. These are fantastic. We've even got some residential. Oh man, that is, I was not expecting it to look that cool. Really love that platform. And there's a bunch of other ones that kind of look similar. I mean, all these are very nice. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use, where are you? Just clipping into some buildings. I think it's gonna be really cool if we use a bit of a mixture of zoning, because we can actually use, let's just have a little play with this. Smith Hills, interesting choice of name. Yeah, so we can actually choose Heart of Korea, and that means that all the buildings that are going to grow within that area are going to be in that, or using that DLC. So that's pretty sweet. And see, even buildings like this, you know, I feel like I'd like to build a couple of these or have a block that has a lot of the same types of architecture. Hang on a tick. This looks like we've got some big old buildings. Oh, yeah. Beautiful garden up top, some shops down below, and that asset is actually great. I said asset, by the way, asset. It looks like we've also got some unique buildings as well that we can place. We've got a police station, a little tiny police station, plastic surgery center, and that's healthcare. Very interesting. Massive department store. Whoa, that is huge. We've got temples and, oh man, some pretty interesting types of buildings. So we've got tons. We've got tons of really cool things to play with. So let's get started because we're just wasting time. All right, see you later. So where should we start? It shouldn't be residential because we've got no demand for residential at the moment. I think we go for converting some of our office blocks because we've got a pretty big demand for offices and industry. And I think that this will be a pretty good spot for it. I believe that a lot of these buildings, if not all of them are commercial and offices. So that's a good one. Oh man, our grid is so messed up. So let's start with this area down here. I'm gonna convert, you know what, let's go big. Go big or go home. Cypress Hills, nice name. And if I just click that, what's gonna happen to all my buildings? Are they gonna all disappear? What are you gonna do? Let's just speed them along. We'll get rid of a couple of these. Alright, big doofus me. I didn't realize that the How to Create content pack, when it comes to growables, it is low density residential, not high density, and it's not low density commercial, it's high density, and then no offices. So, that's a problem because none of them exist within this area. So, I think we rezone. Let's rezone. Rather than offices, let's go high density commercial. And I reckon we just go full blown rezoning. Stores are starting to come through. They're looking very nice and they're upgrading very quickly too. We got we got a giga store. I mean, it totally is a giga store. It's massive. This is starting to work. This is a block that I've just been working on, just you know, doing a little bit of plot the growables, a little bit of zoning, and the mix is starting to work very nicely. And I actually think it works really well with some of the vanilla buildings. They actually complement each other really well. So I'm gonna continue to do that, but an area that is not working is, I mean, this is the limitations of zoning in this game. You get this. This looks just so bad. I mean, you've got, what, 7, 8 of the same corner buildings, not on corners, in the same area. I hate this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep just one of them. Let's get rid of all of these. You know, I'm just going to keep that one. There's another one there. Oh my god, there's so many of them. And the problem is they're all zoning in there because there's only one type of building that can fit into that spot. So I'm going to disable the zoning in those areas because that's not working. Yeah, that definitely looks a lot better. But to be honest, I'm going to pause it there for this area because this is where our skyline's going to sit. And if I was just to have a little look at some of those buildings, some of these buildings are pretty big and they're going to stretch along this whole area. So I think we just put a pin on this area. Let's just stop there. And instead, we're gonna push this way because this area is going to be rezoned. Alright, this whole expansion thing is not going to work if we have no demand for residential. So you might be thinking, alright, just zone out some more offices and some more industry. Well, I'm actually not going to do that. I'm instead going to remove some houses, which is kind of like not what you do, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it because this area down here is just a bit of a mess. It's really just a whole bunch of high density and it just looks kind of ugly and I hate it. So I'm going to get rid of all of these. And now I'm going to make this all low density and we'll make it the new Korean theme. And I think that's going to look just so much better. There we are. And while we're at it, let's expand a little bit into this part. Now the question is, how is this going to look? I really don't know. Hopefully people are gonna want to build here anyway, because we still have no demand, but hopefully by removing all that high density, we're gonna see a big influx of people want to move in. I've been speeding through the days down here and I am seeing absolutely no change in any sort of demand. Every now and again, the green just sort of pops up, there it goes, pops up and then it disappears. And it's because we've got a lot of space within these buildings. Not just these ones, but our entire island is full of just fires. And it's also full of just apartments, massive, massive apartments. Towers everywhere. And they're not completely full. So that means people are going to those spaces first rather than zoning new houses. I'm going to do something pretty drastic here. I'm going to go through and I'm going to do a mass culling of pretty much every apartment that I think is just in a weird location or too high. I'm going to go through and change some of the policies so that an area like this, I don't think we need to have anything too tall. So a high-rise ban is in place for you guys. So what I'm curious to see is how much of a hit are we going to see in our population, or is it not going to change anything? All right, Shirley, it's time. It's time for your massive makeover. Kind of interested to see what happens to our population when I press play on that simulation, because we have gotten rid of a lot of apartments. Just have a look at the skyline now. I mean, it is way more pronounced, and that's not even with our new skyline that we're going to be creating in the next episode. It does look a lot better. We're going to be having buildings spawning in about that size. Actually, let's fly over to where we do have some of those Korean apartments. Yeah, so you can see they're going to be far better looking. All right, should we press play? What's gonna happen? Let's just press play. We'll speed up the simulation. How many people are going to, okay, that's a lot of people. Well, hopefully a lot of them move back in. That's sort of the plan. I have gone through and changed the district styles to basically Korean in every single area. And of course, we're going to continue seeing some of the vanilla apartments still growing because it doesn't affect high density, which is totally fine because I kind of like the mix, to be honest. I haven't actually gone through and changed any of these districts because they kind of look good. I like the way they look. But you can see some of the Korean style apartments starting to zone back in, which is great. Okay, we're starting to see some people trickle in. It's not a lot, but it's people. It's people. They're starting to move back into the city, which is great. We have almost dropped our population by half. So a lot of people have now left and we are just sinking, sinking financially. But I'm gonna give it a little bit of time and see how many people starts to come back. we are at 35,000 residents, which is lovely, but man, it's been so slow. And we've taken a bit of a hit financially as well. It's because we've basically lost a lot of income and we're losing a lot of industry as well, which I did anticipate, but it's been a little brutal. That's looking alright. It's been a bit slow down there, but over here, which is kind of like the final finished product of what I reckon a lot of these suburbs are going to look like, and this is looking really nice. I haven't really been doing much down here. I've just been letting it grow and things are looking very nice. I mean, look at the buildings all squeezed in together. We've got all these guys all squeezed in together. It's just looking very nice. So I'm hoping that a lot of these places are going to look very similar. I have also zoned this one as the same sort of district and it's kind of worked, but it also kind of hasn't. So for instance, all these commercial buildings, I mean, this is just what happens, isn't it? This is why zoning doesn't always work. But over here, I think it's working okay, just okay. But we'll see how that looks in a little while. For now, I want to just fix up this this commercial block a little bit because it's just not working. So I'm gonna put it on pause. Look at all the people driving, by the way. We need to give these guys a bit more public transport in the next episode. And what I'm going to do instead is I'm gonna use plop the grubbles and find it, and I'm gonna place down these buildings and see what we can come up with. Hopefully it looks a lot better. Now, I wouldn't call that perfect, but it's definitely an improvement. Now, I'm just going through and adding in some trees, and I'm being very just whatever with these. You know, I'm not like thinking too critically about where I'm placing them. I'm kind of just placing them just to fill a couple of gaps, but also along the side of the streets. You know, some people get a bit hung up about placing it on concrete, you know, like rather than place it on grass parts or even worrying about a planter. But I don't worry too much about planters just because I know in Australia at least, and I've seen in quite a lot of other countries, you typically see a lot of these trees, like they outgrow the planters and then they start kind of bursting through the concrete, which is always kind of cool to see. So I'm going to do something similar with that in an area like this. But really, it's just an excuse to be a little bit lazy and just not worry about placing anything down in terms of a planter. But you know what? Who cares? You don't even really notice. Probably shouldn't have even told you I did it. And we'll just cover that a bit up. Probably should use a variety of trees, but we're just going to kind of place it out. If you can't tell, this episode's definitely not a detailing episode. This is just a big converty episode. Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I think that is a big improvement to what it was before. And I reckon a lot of these buildings, they're going to, I mean, some of these are only level 1, so they're going to change, which I think would make a huge difference. So that's looking a lot better. But you know what? I'm actually going to come back to so many of these areas. I plan to do a whole episode where I just basically convert all of these from looking pretty kind of bland, a little bland, and then we kind of give a bit more personality. But you know, that's later. That's not this episode. All right, hit the 40,000 mark. Fantastic. I honestly didn't expect that. I kind of thought that we're just going to tank it because, I mean, these areas are now zoned for far less people. So I don't know where people are moving in. I don't know what's going on, but it's working. And every now and again, we start making money. Every now and again. Oop, there you go. Hey, I found a temple as well. I think this would be an awesome addition. Now, I kind of want this to be front and center of the city. I almost placed it down there, but I kind of feel like it's too close to the metro. I want this to be in a bit more of a quiet place. So what I think I'm going to do, heart and center of the city. Well, what I mean by that, I mean just kind of somewhere I can see it a lot. And I think up here would be kind of cool. You know, it's really quite a nice spot. And we do have this road that kind of just ends randomly. So let's use this one. And then we've got a bit of a good reason why this road's here in the first place. Probably a little bit too steep. Maybe we'll try that again. So like I always say, I like to drag out these roads and then I use move it afterwards because I find it much easier to then control the nodes that way. That's a pretty little tranquil spot, I think, for a Buddhist temple. But I reckon there's still some more stuff I could be adding to this. A couple more bits of detail. But what do you guys reckon? What should I add here? Because I reckon there's going to be some people in the comment sections that are going to have far better ideas than I do. But for now, that's a pretty good little spot. There's still quite a lot left to do in terms of converting Shirley into a city based in Korea, but I think that we're definitely on the right track. I think that this is a great starting point. And funnily enough, I was very close to actually downloading a bunch of custom assets from the Steam Workshop and pretty much doing essentially this. But I think that this is definitely the better option. But of course, do let me know what you think, what we should get up to in the next episode, what you think of the new expansion packs and the new updates to the game. I mean, it's all pretty exciting stuff. We'll be back in Shirley next week and we'll be adding in that skyline and also making some improvements to the bus network, adding in a bit more public transport and checking out the new buses. They sound pretty cool. Let's add in some of them. And speaking of cool, shout out to the cool people over on Patreon supporting the channel and making videos like this possible. Carlos Rodriguez, John, Fluffy the Cat, Megalodon, Ajo, Emil, Tyler Smith, Lawrence Pitts, Cameron Inglis, Dan Dobson, Harry Smith, and Murph90210. Guys, thank you all so much for your support. Very much appreciated, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!